My brothers, my brothers, my brothers, it is your boy Joseph Roberts here, and I am inviting you to join me at the Men Hurt 2 conference being held here in Dallas on July 19th, 2025. We got an awesome lineup of speakers. There's going to be food, there's going to be music, there's going to be door prizes, just a host of activities that are going on exclusively designed and set up just for the men. We don't oftentimes have these safe spaces for us to chop it up and fellowship with one another. But on that day, July 19th here in Dallas, we are going to be doing just that. And to any ladies that are tuning in right now to this video, if you got some special men in your life, whether it's your husband, your son, your brother, your nephew, your grandson, I don't care who he is. If you know that he needs to be a part of something like this, get him registered too. Simply go to Eventbrite today to get yourself registered and get your ticket. Give somebody a ticket. We look forward to seeing you.
All right, you have heard your church announcements. Govern yourselves accordingly. It's so good to be back. I am your boy, your nephew, Pastor Alex Allen, also known as the man behind the sax. Over here, we got my boy Hilton Young, aka GF Soldier. How we doing today, man?
Man, we're doing good, man. We're doing good. Thanks for asking. I
Good,
appreciate
good,
it.
good. I always tell people sometimes with everything that we have going in life, instead of asking people, especially since the Bible says we die daily, instead of asking somebody, how are you doing? You should ask, how are you die?
Yeah, I
It
know,
sounds
right?
kind of, how you dying, baby? I'm dying just fine. Anyway, we are back with our My Brother's Keeper. Y'all know how we do this every fourth Sunday at 7 o'clock. Shout out to the visionary behind this, Minister Arthur Stephanie Seaton, who is somewhere backstage making sure we do what we're supposed to do. But today's subject is a very pertinent one, and it's one that is very pushed on social media as well as in the world itself. Uh, Men and money.
Hmm.
Money, 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 money. Y'all know. God's expectation of provision in the midst of pressure. And oh, we got our special guest here, Mr. TC Alexander, all the way from the Bank of Texas. Go ahead and unmute yourself, my man. And you should be good to go. At the bottom of your screen where the unmute is. Your mic's probably red.
If he can hear us.
TC, can you hear us?
Yeah, I don't think he can hear
I don't
us.
think he can hear us.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh,
Okay.
check back out.
Okay, check back out. Nice back in.
Mm,
Okay, yeah, I see you're going in the chat.
mm,
We don't want to leave him behind on this one.
no.
We finna be off and rolling.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can jump in at some point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we can
Okay,
update it.
we can update for sure. Okay, so it's a lot to unpack, really.
Hmm.
From a biblical perspective,
Yes.
uh, as well as a natural perspective, which
Yeah.
I it's kind of funny that I taught a Sunday school lesson this morning about how to balance our emotions from a physical point, from a spiritual standpoint, because we often miss the balance. We're always just kind of like a parabola, sometimes up, sometimes down.
Mhm.
What you think, Hilton? I don't want to jabber on like a monkey in a tree.
In terms of balancing ourselves, in terms of
In terms of,
emotion,
right. Hmm.
uh, is I think it's something that it's not taught. Um, in terms of balancing our emotions, I think it takes a little bit of emotional intelligence and emotional maturity to be able to do it. It's something that it has to be taught because that's not something that we normally know how to do. We call it regulating our emotions. A
Mm,
lot of the times we allow our emotions to turn in feelings and then we project our feelings onto people and we make our truth their truth as well. And so a lot of the times we're not self-aware enough to be able to manage our emotions because we quick to point the finger and say, well, you made me feel this way. You did this to me. You did that to me. And a lot of the times it is our perception of the situation that makes us project our feelings onto other people and make it their truth instead of making it our truth. So we're not good at doing that. And,
Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me?
yes, sir. We can hear
We
you.
read you, TC.
We got you. We got you. Can you hear us?
I may have very bad internet. I'm at a hotel, so
Okay. Can you hear us?
and I just keep seeing Hilton Young and Alex Allen. They just keep circling.
All right, we can see you and read you, so you're
No,
good.
I cannot hear you.
Okay.
Whoa.
No. Yeah. I just asked him the question in the chat and he said, no, he can't hear us. So,
Got you. Okay.
okay.
Got you. But it makes perfect sense, really. Because as men, there's so much pressure exerted on
Okay,
us.
well, that's half the battle.
Go ahead.
There's so much, pressure exerted on us. I mean, even when going back to the
I'm
beginning in
afraid my
Genesis.
internet may be too unstable to do this.
Mhm.
Okay, good. They will type you your questions and you can answer. Yeah.
Okay. I'm
We'll do
open.
that.
Yeah. Hey, we'll improvise.
Mhm.
And then we'll just keep it pushing.
Right.
It's so much. I mean, you go to Genesis, even after the failure in the garden where he says men are to work, from the sweat of their brow, we take it at face value and say, okay, that just means go to work.
Mhm.
There's a lot more encompassed when it comes to work from the sweat of our brow.
Mhm.
And and then the other part of women, you will suffer through childbirth, and of course that's a whole nother battle in itself. And I often tell men, when you're in the delivery room, the only two statements you can say is I love you and
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, trust me, I went through it once.
Right.
But it's so much. And then when you look at from a standpoint of status now, that's all men are. That's all we're judged upon is financial status.
Yes.
That's it. Kind of breaks my heart because I'm like, do you not understand that it takes more than money to actually keep things steady?
Right.
Even though money and the financial aspect is a big part of it,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like a solution. You can't have one part of a solution and the other. You're not going to get the right equation.
Right.
Excuse me. Which brings us to the first segment, the weight of provision,
Mhm.
a sacred expectation. Provision is not a man-made expectation. It is a God-ordained responsibility.
Yes.
So, so next time you go to church, you tell them Pastor Allen said.
Mm.
It should end the argument. But the scriptural reference is the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it.
Mhm.
Work.
Yeah.
Lord Jesus.
Right.
Somebody cringing right now because they think about work and you got a holiday tomorrow. It is a shame people got to work through the holiday. But what does that, say to you, Hilton, as far as from, that key point of provision is not a man-made expectation. It's a God-ordained responsibility.
Yes, it's a God ordained responsibility. However, because we're human and we're subjected to human error and human flaw,
Mhm.
I think the pressure to live up to that God given responsibility that comes from human makes what we do harder than what it really is. And this is what brings
Mm,
about stress. This what brings about pressure, because I think the pressure that society puts on the man to live up to that God given responsibility, I don't think it was ever in God's plan for us to stress as hard as we do and go through some of the things we go through in terms of trying to, uh, you know, embody that that responsibility that he puts on us. And I think, from a perspective, um, and then the question is, while we have that God-given responsibility, does society dictate how we bring forth that responsibility? And what I mean by that is, and it may be a little controversial, do our female counterparts dictate in some way how we should lead and how we should manage that responsibility, and do and if and does some of our aggressive sisters push us into a position uh, to live up to an expectation that's not their responsibility in the first place? But what they try to do is
Mm.
they try to teach us how to be responsible in that area, and it was never their calling to do it. And it may be controversial, but a lot of the times, we we come we come under the subjection of societal pressure to do this. God, and so when you say it's not man-made, right? It's not man-made, which means
Mhm.
nobody has made that up but God. So then why are people trying to dictate and pressure us into doing something that they're not called to do? And from that perspective, in terms of dealing with money, a lot of us are raised in households that did not teach us the proper way to budget money and to handle money. So I'm just speaking from personal perspective in terms of how I grew up. So where's the balance in terms of um, the help that should be involved? It's like more pressure comes to us than help. Are you going to help me, or are you going to pressure me? Are you going to criticize me every time I do something you don't like? Or are you going to help in that area in terms of where I could, you know, be weak in some areas, or not as literate or as knowledgeable in some areas of finances as you may be? Or are you going to continue to beat me over the head because I'm not as knowledgeable as you are? You know what I'm saying? So I think there's some controversy in terms of us leading, and if we don't live up to the expectation that some women put on us or society put on us, then we're bad leaders. We're bad. We don't deserve to be the head of the household. Well, if this is a God ordained responsibility, and this is God's plan for us to be that way, I think there should be some more compassion and empathy in that area to allow us to lead and be the help that we need from a societal perspective and from a gender perspective as well. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack in terms of this, and I'm just coming from a personal perspective because, you know, uh, my knowledge in terms of money is not where it should be, but I'm still taking care of my family as best I can. And so I can say that in some areas I'm financially
And
illiterate.
super excited about the conference. I'm hoping to inspire some of the men, if not all of the men. We go through a lot. We deal with a lot, and we try to go through this silently and quietly, maybe from embarrassment. Maybe it's just from being told that if we're not handling business certain ways, then we're not really a man. And that's absolutely not true. So I'm looking forward to being a part of this and maybe helping to help some of us brothers heal some of this hurt that we have around our finances.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. TC Alexander has chimed in. I love it. Um, you're absolutely right, Hilton, on so many levels. Um, one thing I know about God is that when he gives a word, it's simplistic. That's number one. Number two, he doesn't add to or take away. He gives you what it is. But we being human like to add our own little twist to it. That's the crazy part. Even I'll go on record and say I've had 24 couples ask me to marry them, and out of 24, I've only married two because you can't bring your idea. And this is from a male and a female perspective. You can't bring what you perceive as your idea of marriage to something that is totally new. Even, and I guess what's one of the problems when dealing with divorcees, and trust me, I understand. your methodology of doing things just isn't, it's not going to work here. Especially when the Bible says, I will do a new thing. Oh, wow. I didn't know it did that. A new thing. And that's the wonderful thing about God is when he does something new, it's totally new, not just for you, but for the other person. And the way that he wants us to steward things, especially being men, it's totally, it's simple, but we make it so hard. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Um, the other scripture in this first segment, First Timothy 5:8. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. I used to hear that when I was, growing up, and that's the wonderful thing about growing up. And I was born 1987. And people say, well, you're a millennial. I don't consider myself a millennial. I tell folks I'm a Gen XY hybrid. They went in the back, did something, then said, nah, this ain't what's gonna be. And here we are. And I used to hear that all the time because what it does is if we don't stick to the playbook, just be an athlete, um, and what happens is you fall further than the most lowest man that you could ever think of. Now, that ain't me, that's the Bible. It's um it's a sobering reminder that provision is a spiritual standard, not just financial, but holistic, emotional, spiritual, and physical leadership. Um, what say ye, young Hilt?
Yeah, I agree with it. You know, um, for me, um, I think provision is a big thing and a big thing that's needed. Um, I think that from the perspective in which you say we need to cut down on our own ideological presuppositions when it comes to money and how to manage it, and particularly marriage as well, and really get the biblical standard and get some professionals to come in here and really talk about how to really get educated on finance and not just come up with your own ideologies and thinking that just because it worked for you it'll work for somebody else. I think it needs to be a conversation and a communication between two people in terms of effectively being able to manage money in a manner in which both people can agree. A lot of the times, divorces happen because of finances and because of people's own ideologies, and one person not giving in to the other, and it becomes a huge conflict. But I'm anxious to see what our brother TC got to say. So, I'm a digress on this part right here because I'm ready to learn some stuff. So
Well, I think when it comes to men and marriage expectations about finances, it really starts in the premarital counseling. It gives us the opportunity as men to understand the expectations of our wives so that we can have the conversation, so we can ensure we're on the same page. And then, from there, I think it's our opportunity and our responsibility to lead our families in that category. So, be the head. You don't necessarily have to be the breadwinner, but if you are being looked to be the leader in the house when it comes to finances, make sure that you step up and you make sure that things happen. Make sure you're doing everything that you need to do to pull your weight. One of the things that I think is a I'm going to say a pet peeve of mine is, if a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. And I've never really subscribed to men just sitting around not doing a whole lot to ensure that the family's taken care of financially. So I would just encourage, again, get out there, make sure that you and your wife are on the same page, and then you take the lead and do whatever is necessary. A lot of times that means that we have to, make some sacrifices and maybe not have everything that we want to have. Or maybe it means that we have to maybe work two jobs just to make sure that we are providing. But I feel like it is at the risk of being old school. It is our responsibility to make sure that the house is taken care of and that we're doing everything in our power to make sure that our families have everything that they need. As my dad would say, he used to tell us he's going to make sure that we have everything we need and most of what we want. So I feel like it is our responsibility to make sure that our households are taken care of with everything that they need.
Nicely said. And it's amazing, I have so many stories growing up of, even I look at my parents now. I was just home for Mother's Day. I went to go see uh
Some of the pressures that I see a lot of men coming in out of, I'm going to say, in a bad situation, and they need money for their family, and they're coming, and there's challenges that prevent us from helping them. There's situations to where credit is a big hindrance, right? So because we haven't done a very good job of establishing good credit early in life, it prevents us from doing things like buying a car, uh, buying a house, being able to get a loan so that we can do the things that we need to do for our families. So that's a really big one. Another thing is just sometimes just not understanding finances, period. Understanding how savings works and how investments work, things like that. So I would really honestly say that some of the biggest challenges are the credit piece, and then I would say the lack of financial education. A lot of us weren't taught. A lot of brothers just weren't taught. You know, about finances. And so it was really, let me just do what I've seen. And it was really kind of a mantra, a mindset of let's just kind of live paycheck to paycheck. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially in today's economy. It happens. But I think if we had better financial education, financial literacy, whichever word you want to use, on the front end when we're younger, it will help us be able to position some things, make sure we do some things to not make life so stressful as we get older and we start taking on responsibilities of having families.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I'll chime in. I just went around the horn before I got to my explanation of
Mhm.
um, one of the biggest things that I hear in premarital counseling sessions is that that's a nice echo. Uh,
Mhm.
fellas, and that, maybe I might be throwing us under the bus here for a second. Tell the truth. That's all you got to do. Just tell the truth. I
Yes.
guarantee you, if you tell the truth, a woman will be understanding and she will listen to your story.
Mhm.
But when you try from a financial standpoint and you're sitting, in front of Mr. Alexander here, try to get a car or something, and all of a sudden it's like a Johnny Taylor song, everything's out in the open.
Mhm.
I mean, am I telling the truth?
You are.
Yeah.
Yes, he could hear us now. Yeah, I'm glad he
Yes.
can hear us now.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
he's in. He's
Praise
in.
the Lord. Won't he
You
do it?
sit you
He
sitting
will.
in the loan officer's desk. Oh, I forgot to tell you about that car back in,
Yeah.
2018. You ain't forget, you ain't say nothing.
Hmm.
And it shows you how, well, it shows the other person if he's hiding this. You see how that opens up. We always say women are private investigators, which they are because they're felines, and that's just in their inalienable nature. But it stacks the deck against you already. It is already stacked.
Yeah.
You know, I want to go to this next scripture before we get to our next segment. Philippians, the fourth chapter, and the 19th verse, where it says, "And my God shall supply all your needs according to His riches and glory in Christ Jesus." For the man facing real financial strain, this isn't about hustle culture. It's about heaven's provision. This is why it's so important to have these types of conversations with men who have been there. I I go back to my parents. I have great parents. They're both retired, and I'll never forget when they took me riding around one day. They said this was our first residence, and it was just a slab of concrete there. He's like, "Well, the house isn't there anymore, but this is where we lived. Our washer and dryer was used. Your mama had a, I think my mom had a 350Z, an old school one." And he was like, "We didn't really have much, but we had each other, you know." And he said what got us to where we were was the fact that we concentrated on our needs and not our greeds.
Hmm.
We live in a culture now where if you don't have a Gucci bag or MCM, I mean, I'm just saying, then you're not really doing what you should be doing in life. If you don't drive this, if you don't have that, if you forget all that stuff. Everybody has to start
Somewhere.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if your credit card is just a secure credit card, you got a credit card. You can
Yep.
build on that, And the problem is, now, ladies, I already know I'm gonna get a DM for this, so I'm gonna say it anyway. You cannot expect the sun, the moon, the stars, the quasars. Now I sound like Elroy Jetson on the first date.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's like, how could I put it? It's like because I watched, y'all want to watch that show, Pop the Balloon?
Hmm.
Eh, One lady said, "Well, where are you gonna take me on the first date?" One guy was like, "Well, I'm gonna take you for coffee." She popped his balloon. Like, I don't even know you. Well, that's why, you know. And we concentrate on the greed aspect rather than the need. You know, the hustle culture that you have to do something inhumane or illegal just to get ahead. That's not what this is. Even this economy shouldn't make or force you to do anything. That's why it's so important for the church today to teach on these things. You know, uh, somebody asked me a long time ago, "Well, Pastor, why don't you preach about sin like most preachers do?" I said, "Why would I want to preach against something when there's so much to preach for?"
Hmm.
There's more than that in that Bible than just sin. It talks about provision. It talks about covering your household. It talks about defending your household spiritually. 2 Corinthians 10:4, for we wrestle not with flesh and blood, like I taught it today. So I'm gonna stop talking because I can preach for 2 hours. I'm gonna go to TC for a minute since he's live and in color now. What
I
say ye,
know.
sir?
So I feel like what you just said, I talk to people about that all the time. We don't have to keep up with the Joneses, right? Because the Joneses are out here, they are balling out, doing their thing on Saturday night, popping bottles, getting sections, but Sunday morning they call and asking if they can borrow some eggs so they can feed their children. That doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. But I'm with you. I think that as men, we have to understand that every test just helps build your testimony. And we've all been there, and speaking personally, I was in a situation where I was borrowing electricity from my neighbor and hiding my car from the repo man. And that was just, part of my testimony, part of my story, the journey that God had me on to get me to where he had me to go. And so I just, my encouragement to the fellas is to stay the course. You don't, to your point, if the lady that you're talking to is not happy going to Cheddar's instead of Papados, she may not be the wifey. She might be, she's not wife material. You want to be with someone that's going to work with you and not have you put yourself in a position where you can't grow over the course of time and put that pressure on you to where you don't feel like you're a man. You're a man. You have responsibilities, then obligations. Stick to those. The good times will come.
Yeah, also we live in a society where we want it right now, that instant gratification. And so that hustle mentality is not just from a perspective of doing illegal selling and things of that nature. Sometimes that hustle mentality is from a perspective of we want to do what we can so we can get it right now as it relates to doing what we can to invest in time to come. We don't Some of us, we just want it right now, and a lot of times the pressure on us to have it done in this amount of time. But like you say, you got to start somewhere and build. But some people just don't want to go through that building process. Some people want it right now, and we live in a society where instant gratification is a huge thing. It's like that's the pressuring part of it. And so for me, um, it's almost like you're stuck like a rock in a hard place when you're dealing with people who see have a different vision from you, and and then you have to break away from people who don't have that same vision to build and to grow, and not want things instant gratification. We live that's the old term, we live in a microwave
Mhm.
generation where we could just pop it in the oven and bam, we got instant popcorn in 2.5 minutes. And a lot, and and what I'm learning right now, because I'm being educated financially right now, because I can say I'm financially illiterate, but I'm getting some literacy in my head, and I know one thing: you can't microwave money.
Mhm.
And how likely is it that you're gonna win the doggone lottery? You understand what I'm saying? And if you do, and you're financially illiterate, you're gonna spend that within 6 months, even if it's $1 million, because you don't know what you're doing with the money. All you want to go do is spend, 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 spend. So if you're financially illiterate and you win the lottery, you win $80 million, you're probably gonna spend that in 6 months, because now you want to live this lavish lifestyle. You don't know how to manage money. You don't know how to budget. You don't know how to invest in anything of that magnitude, and you just gonna you're gonna waste your money. So for me, um it's tough. It's tough to try to teach a generation of people who are a microwave generation that, hey, put that microwave away, get in that kitchen and start from scratch. and
Mhm.
and maybe you'll have a better turnout in terms of quality over quantity. You know what I'm saying? And so we looking for quantity. We're looking for how much. We're not looking for uh, the authenticity that comes with quality and all that other stuff. And so I was one of those people, and and it got me into a lot of trouble financially. So I'm having to dig myself out of that right now as we speak. At 51 years old, some stuff I know now, I wish I would have known at 21, and I'll probably be further along. So that's kind of like my testimonial thing to what y'all been saying, and it's a lot of people like myself and older who die and don't have nothing to leave behind, and they worked their fingers to the bone until they couldn't work no more, and they were still working check to check until they were 70, 80, and 90 years old. I know people like that. So um, I think this is pertinent for us to have this type of conversation, particularly men, and I think it's just as good for women as well. It's just so I'm just happy and excited to have the conversation. So that's my spill on that. So
Yeah. If you don't mind me just jumping in here again,
not at all.
I think we need more of this, right? Because
Yes.
Brother Hilton, the transparency that you just displayed, if we all did that, I think it would eradicate the um, the notion that I'm the only one going through this and this is embarrassing. This is just real life. I
Hmm.
read an article today about a former NFL player who blew through like $50 million, right? And now they have had to file bankruptcy. And if I remember the story correctly, they had like $26 million worth of debt. Don't quote me, but I think that's what the number was. And
Hmm.
now they're on they're building back again. Late mid to late 50s, if I
Hmm.
remember correctly.
Yeah.
They have a job, but again, it's one of those things where it was, trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying, I'm rich and I'm trying to get richer, and lost a lot of money behind bad investments, you know, get rich quick scheme. So I say all that to say I love the transparency. I agree with you 1,000% that as men we need to have these conversations, learn from each other,
Yes, indeed.
learn from each other's not only from each other's mistakes, but learn from each other's successes, because
Yes.
that's how we are going to change the dynamic of our community.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a good way to put a bow on segment one.
Hmm.
Uh, I love it. I'm loving
Yeah.
it. Segment number two, real pressure in real places. The modern provider's challenge. Modern men face intense cultural,
Yes.
economic, and
Yes.
emotional pressure that
Yes.
often goes unspoken.
Yes.
First scriptural reference, James 5 and 6. Therefore, confess your sins one to another and pray for one another that ye may be healed. Silence is not strength.
No.
That's point, that's the first point here. Biblical masculinity involves vulnerability and
Yes.
community for healing and strategy. Now,
Yes.
let me cut across the field here. Uh, the culture sucks now. Let me just be real with you. Everything is, like you said, is instant gratification, and most of the time, your overnight successes are typically 18 to 20 years in the making.
Mhm.
Think about that for a minute. A guy, he's born, he plays little league football, baseball, basketball, whatever. Goes to college, does it. By the time he's 20, 21, he's in the pros, and that's a one in one. I think the probability of making it into the pros is 1 in 500,000.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
think that's probability was my strong suit in
Yeah.
math. So, but
It's even more
point
for that
is,
for NBA. Like
yeah,
NFL is one
NBA
thing,
is
but it's
darn near
much.
impossible.
Yeah, it's much more for NBA. Yeah.
It's darn near impossible.
Hmm.
And the economic, don't even get me started on that, you know, and the emotional pressure. Um, especially like the economy when I was a kid growing up was your dad went to work at the mill or whatever he did. That was back when, you could really have a single, income household, especially with the way things were cost back then. Um, Now you can't have that anymore. So unless, you're one of the few that have a master's or a doctorate and you're, helping people stay out of jail or anything of that nature. um, but it's the culture forces us to consider the contradiction now, because this is why men are afraid to get out into the dating world, because the expectations are way up here.
Mhm.
Like TC said, keeping up with the Joneses, popping bottles, taking trip, and all of that's good. I'm not saying you shouldn't aspire to do those things, but chances are you got to be like Drake and start from the bottom. It's just like salvation. You got to come through here like everybody else.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
take up your cross
Hmm.
and follow him.
Yeah.
And we don't see it like that. We want what we see on the screen. Ooh, ooh, ooh. If you're listening, you ought to put that in your Rolodex. We want what we see on the screen.
Yes.
Wow.
It's pressure.
Hmm.
Our silence comes from being, like I often say on our podcast, we've mastered how to be human. We just haven't mastered how to be humane.
Wow.
Mm. Break that down. Explain the difference.
So human, having all the attributes of a human, I'm a man, blah, blah, blah. But the humane aspect of it is knowing when to display your strength,
Gotcha. All right.
knowing when to display those attributes, not just putting it on your shoulders like it's something. Some silence is very quiet, like me. I tell people when I get quiet,
Be scared.
Mm.
Get scared. Yeah.
might want to rethink some things, because I got that from my dad. My dad, happy go local guy to this day, but then when he gets quiet and he sits like this and he just looks, let me back up a little bit.
Hmm.
But the pressure of, okay, I got a mortgage due, two car notes due, we got credit cards due. That's pressure. It
Lots of
don't
pressure.
let the kids be acting crazy,
Mm.
or let it be
Yeah.
back to school and or Christmas or birthdays.
Yeah.
I had somebody say the other day, man, can I just tell my girlfriend I'll get her her gift next week? I said, you can't use that excuse till you're married. You can't use that excuse until you're married, son. But let's talk about the pressure. And I'm gonna shoot to Hilton first on this, because he looked like he got something stewing over here because he got that rock going. It's all you, bub.
What's the question now? I'm sorry.
Well, let's talking about the pressure of, you know in this era of being the provider, the man, the head of the household, et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
Like,
I think the pressure comes from people who have not experienced being in a position to be head of household or to be leader. So it usually come from those people who don't know better, but think they do. And then they try to tell you better in the process, but they don't know any much better neither. And of course, if you're in a relationship, there's some wives that'll be more knowledgeable financially than the husband, and then that aspect of it as a help me, she should be willing to come in and say, "Well, babe, let me take over and do a lot of stuff." But there's some who are not really, not no more financially literate than you are, and try to tell you what to do and all that other stuff. And then it ain't just from that; it's from a whole aspect of, well, you should know all this already, so why are you tripping type stuff, as if we supposed to be flawless
the
in this
what? That's
aspect
the
of
what?
it, and you know and you have no deficiencies whatsoever. Well, we're human, so we're subject to human error and human flaw. And so what you're telling me is I should have no flaws in me. I should be perfect in this area, and you shouldn't have to tell me nothing. I shouldn't have to help with this and all other stuff. So that pressure is also there as well. And I think even more so the pressure we put on ourselves,
That part.
to I think that part is even more catastrophizing than the people that put pressure on us, because like myself, I'm so hard on myself and I'm so critical of myself. I want to do better, and sometimes I have to tell myself to back up because I'm beating up on myself so hard, because I'm trying to live up to expectations of people that possibly don't even care. And so, uh, in terms of pressure, you have to um, be able to discern and have that type of humaneness that you're talking about, or that self-control, or that discernment. Because I'm hearing self-control and I'm hearing discernment in that definition of you, that you're saying humane. You have to have enough self-awareness to say, look, I gotta chill, I gotta start taking care of myself better, because my body is starting to react to all of this pressure that I'm putting on myself mentally. And so I need to chill out. But we as men, we have so much pride. Men like myself have so much pride, and then there's an incredibly large ego that we have to manage as well, because we feel like, well, I should be further along than I am right now, and I'm guilty of beating myself up in that perspective. And many times I'm so disappointed in myself that I'm still at this place that I was 20 years ago, and I should be further along. You know what I'm saying? And I'm being transparent because I know there's a lot of people out there like myself who are fearful of having a talk like this, for the fear of judgment and for the fear of what people gonna think of them. And so we keep that tough exterior to avoid the vitriol and the criticism and the slander that can come from other people and come from society, and sometimes coming from our own women. But if we don't talk about this, and if we don't come clean about what's going on with us, and we keep holding this stuff in, we're going to destroy ourselves from the inside out because of that pressure that we're putting on ourselves. So that's why, I'm just kind of coming clean today, and maybe this can help some other men come clean as well, because we need to clean this up. You know what I'm saying? And so, and hopefully I could clean this up before I take my last breath. But that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm also working on trying to take care of myself in the process, and not subject myself to other people's criticism all the time. And then in turn, put all of that pressure back on myself because of what other people think of me. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
That's good. TC, it's ooh, that's a lot
Man,
that I had to ingest.
he walked through everything I was gonna say. He nailed it.
Wow.
You nailed it. Yeah, it's I love that. And sometimes we do have to be strong, right? Being silent sometimes is a sign of weakness, right? Because if you aren't
It
able
is.
to have that conversation, right?
it just, to your point, it makes you sick, right? Now you're
It
stressed
does.
out. Your chest is tight, your blood pressure's high, your
Yes.
cortisol levels high, so you can't lose it. Yeah, it's and we have to be able to have that ability to be vulnerable with our partners, right? That,
Hmm.
hey, and I think as you were talking, it just came to me. We made it look so easy for a while, but things change, right?
Yes.
Sometimes things change. And because we've made it look so easy, because we've handled it so well, when there is a bump in the road, you know, they don't see the humanity in that. They don't see that, hey, things are different. Hey, eggs are $7 a carton now, back when they used to be 88 cents. You
Yes.
know, so,
And it
I'm just
wasn't that
saying,
long ago. It wasn't that
right.
long ago that it was 88 cents. It
Right,
wasn't that long
Right.
ago. Yeah.
gas was $1.70 a gallon. Now it's $3 a gallon, right? So
Yeah.
we can't just go joyriding on Sunday like we used to do,
Mm-mm.
and having that conversation like, baby, look, we might be able to go to the park and post up versus just keep driving around the city. That's just a conversation that we have to have, and we just, and again, there's so much to unpack here, but I think a lot of that just starts with us having the confidence that we can have that conversation. It's not going to always land well, right? You're going to get the pushback,
No.
you're going to get the judgment, things like that. But I think
Yes.
we have to stand firm in what we're saying, because back to the last segment, we are trying to do things to help our families, right? So we can go out here and we can, ball out and splurge and do all that kind of good stuff, and then we can sit in here with no electricity for a couple of days in between paychecks, or
Right.
we can be in here eating. And then again, there's nothing wrong with it. We can be in here eating some noodles when we could be eating at least some chicken, right? Like, so I think it's just us having the confidence, and then just having the wherewithal just to stand our ground and say, look, we're doing this for the betterment of our family.
Hmm. Yeah.
What's amazing to me is it was something that you just said. Um, I always say perception is reality, but not
Right,
necessarily the ultimate truth.
right.
Exactly.
You know, my dad always told me, son, always, plan your work and then work your plan. Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Mm,
You know, and people have to understand, ladies, we're gonna have to all understand this. Things take time.
they do.
And there's a comment that I saw, and I want to zero in on it. Men need to choose partners that see them as human, not superheroes. You get the
Mm,
cape later on in life.
right.
You ain't gonna be Batman. You got to learn how to be Bruce Wayne first.
Mm,
You know, and in some cases, your woman might be, because she might have a better understanding of how things work financially. She might play Bruce Wayne, and you might play,
like Robin for a little.
Robin. You might be Robin at,
Yeah.
at some point. So, we all have to, like The Rock would say, know our role. And in
Mm,
some cases, shut our mouths and just do what it is we're supposed to do.
yeah.
Um, I want to zero in on this. Um, I want to move to segment 3 real quick because we're running. We're gonna cut across the field. Redefining provision. It's more than a paycheck. Okay, this is where we get to the good stuff. True provision is about presence, leadership, and legacy, not just financial output. I want to start this segment off because this is where I was really, out of all four of them, this is where I try to teach the most. Um, because men, especially people like myself who, have a pastorate, we understand that it's more than just about money. While you over there sleeping, I'm on my knees, covering not only you, but everybody in here,
They're in the
because
house. Yeah.
everything in our lives revolves around prayer. Um, and it's about covering. Like I tell you all the time, the first question you should ask somebody is not how much money they make or what do they do. It should be, do you worship?
Mm,
Not what do you drive, do you worship? So that's the first question that you should ask, because if you can't fight with me, I tell people all the time. I remember, what's the guy Joe Frazier told Ali, he said, everything I got with these. And I tell people all the time, everything I got with my knees.
mm,
So without them, I got, everything to lose. you
Hmm.
know and the other thing about it is, this goes for, yep, personal relationship requests. Yeah, do you worship? Can you fight, spiritually? Because that's what it's going to take I tell people all the time, and I tell ladies and men this all the time. You have to be careful because if you get with somebody who's got nothing to lose, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
There's a line on Creed 2 where Rocky asked Donnie, "Why do you want to fight?" He's like, "I just told you." "No, you didn't. Why do you want to fight?" "I know why they want to fight you. What about you?" "You said you got everything to lose." He's got nothing to lose. When a fighter's got nothing to lose, they're dangerous.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because the way that the business, because marriage almost is, oh gosh, don't even get me started on that. The way the business is ran on both sides, if they find somebody who has sustenance, they go in there, they wheedle their way in, they bleed them, they suck them dry, and then they leave them in the gutter broke. That's the way the business is ran. And they move on to the next resource. They date based on survival. Mhm. John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, to kill, and to destroy. I've come that they might have life and to have it more abundantly. Godly provision leads to fullness. This includes emotional and spiritual wholeness in the home. It's always more than about money. Because I read a quote the other day that said, if you're sending your child to church
Some drunk.
and you, what you said,
Uh,
what whoever said that, just take it. Just
oh
take.
no, that's just yeah. If you're sending your child to church and not going and leading them, there's something wrong with that picture. That
Yeah.
is definitely something wrong with that picture. But if I could just tag on to something you were saying, about just going through things, the Bible tells us we've never seen the righteous forsaken, right? And we're going to go through trials and tribulations. That's just and I think your spiritual maturity comes when you get into a valley and you can rest on the fact that hey, I've been here before, and I'm praying, I'm fasting, and I'm trusting God that He's going to do what He's done before. Right? My wife always teases me because I always talk about show up and show out, Lord, because He does, and sometimes it's not when you want Him to, right? Been there, done that, where I'm sitting there praying for something. And when I get up, I'm expecting, I need you to fix it as soon as I stand up from this getting off my knees, Lord. And he's like, yeah, no, you need to wait about 6 months, maybe a year, before I bless you with this, right? So yeah, so I would just, again, I get excited about the fact that uh, we just need to have that spiritual maturity to know that God's going to show up at some point. We just got to stay prayed up and know that He will come through.
Yes, and take care of yourself in the process.
Oh, for sure.
don't don't die before your time. If we gonna put our trust in God, then do that. Don't carry the burden. I mean, the burden, His yoke is easy and His burden is light. Well, if that's the case, then we need to cast our cares upon Him,
Yeah.
which is easier said than done, of course. Yes.
Yes.
And
it,
it
it is
always
easier said
is.
than done.
It
You know.
always is because it's
Yeah.
like sometimes I'm like TC. I get off my knee. I'm like, look, I done laid out here. I done screamed. I done cried. I done prayed. Something got to move.
Right.
It's amazing because I often tell my congregation, we're not waiting on God. He's waiting on us
Mm.
That's good.
because obviously there's something that we have to learn from this. And sometimes God will grab you, like my grandfather would say, by the belt buckle, and he'll hold on to you, um, and literally be like, "Look, you're not leaving here until you learn this."
Mm.
And that's the type of community that I grew up in. It was like, you know, I'll never forget. I had a teacher in second grade. Her name was Sterling Harris. She's 82 years old. I talked to her about a month ago. It was amazing. That was an odyssey in itself. And I said, "Remember when you didn't let me go to recess?" And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "Because you said you're going to learn how to add double digits by the time recess is over." And she stuck with it until I got it. And I think that's part of the thing that we as men have an issue of. We think that, okay, we tried it and it didn't work. It only has to work once.
Mhm.
409 is because the 409 cleaner is named that because the guy took 409 times to get the formula
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
It only has to work once. We have to be like a postage stamp. We have to stick with a thing until it gets there. I just got this question in my DM that said, "What do you say to those women that want to understand me in the financial screening? Have an openness to hear what it is that a man's going to say."
Mm.
Because it goes back to our emotions. We have a choice. Just like if somebody would, if you were in church at a crusade and the evangelist said, God is going to bless you with yada, 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 you have a choice whether to accept what he's saying, especially if it's authentic, or reject what he's saying. We all have a choice. But the bottom line is, can the person that we choose be trusted to build together? Feels like
Yeah.
iRobot. Now that's the right question.
That is the right question, and that's funny that you say that because parenting a 20-something-year-old young man, those are the conversations we have. And when he's like, Dad, we're on date one, and she's talking about, we need to get married, and she don't need to work, and I need to buy her this and buy her that. And I talk flags all the time. I'm like, bro, that's a red flag.
Mm,
That's a big red flag because
big one.
what is that something you want? He's like, no, I want to build something with somebody. So if you're talking to somebody that from the start is not talking about building, that they want you to take care of everything, that's just not realistic. So don't spend your time there. So and one more little additive here.
Hmm.
Uh, just recently, a few months ago, I was going through some things and kind of what we talked about. I've been praying. I was praying, Lord, I needed you to come through. I kind of had a deadline, I had a due date, and and my wife I was driving her crazy because I was listening to Melvin Crispell III did a remake of John P. Key's Show Up. And I
Hmm.
mean, I was listening to that song about 20 times a day, like, Lord, I just need you to show up, and she's like, why you keep listening to songs? Because I know he's going to. I'm just imploring him to show up. I know he's going to, but I need him to, and let's just say the due date was 30th, got to about the 25th, and I'm like, okay, Lord, and I started turning the radio up a little bit louder, just a little bit louder. And, but as always, he came through. But again, I think to your point a second ago, he was teaching me something. I had to look for what he was trying to show me in that situation. And so I'll leave it at that. But yeah, again, um, trust God, pray, um, have the conversations that we're talking about with our significant others, because that's the right thing to do.
Right.
Trying to do it on your own, trying to do it without that open communication, because it's a partnership. You talk about everything else. You talk about where you're going on vacation, where you're going out for dinner. This is just another topic that needs to be talked about, and in order that everybody's on the same page and we can move forward down the road together.
I like that. I like that. And I'll close this segment with the scripture that you said. It's not here. Um, where even I think it was David that said, I was once young, but I'm now old, but I have never. And I say that all the time to myself. And every time I think that I'm not heard,
Hmm. Hmm.
the phone rings.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, and I promise you I'm telling the truth. I've woke up to car notes paid. Like lay on the same, couch I'm sitting on right now, wake up and my phone's like, oh, God just told me to so. What?
Hmm.
Okay, yo,
Hmm.
cool, But it's the one thing about it when you trust, and the same trust that we have with him, he wants us to have, here in the physical. And I think that people think that that's some type of diabolical thing, but it's not. Because the same way our relationship works with him, it's the same way our relationship has to work with, whoever's on our left, I always say on my right.
Hmm.
It's an old military habit. Okay. Segment 4. What the church and brotherhood must offer. This is good. Key point: the church in our circles must make space for financial discipleship, brotherhood, and restoration. I'll just kind of read the points here. Normalize budgeting, financial education, and career coaching in Christian settings. Discipleship includes teaching men how to lead their homes even when money is tight. Restoration for the brother who's fallen behind, not condemnation. I think this goes to what Hilton always talks about, these safe spaces, and he's notorious for talking about that, and I love it. Um, because it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, is that the church will teach you how to walk right in a spiritual standpoint, but it doesn't teach me how to walk right from a literal or financial standpoint. You know, they'll concentrate on the tithe, but you're not concentrating on my livelihood. Okay, now how do I maneuver this? How do I convolute the waters here? Or what resources are out here to help me here? Um, and the judgmental aspect, I think that's what a lot of men are scared of. They have this thing now in culture that says we listen and we don't judge.
Yeah.
And that's me. Like I tell people, there's some things I know that I have to take to the grave. I can't even make an utterance of them. And that's because I've learned that when people come to you, it's because number one, they trust you. Number two, they see the God in you. And they know that what's in you is going to draw what's in them out.
Mhm.
It's not like pulling teeth or tell me what to go, it just automatically flows. Um, I'll go around the horn here before I make my comment, but what do you think, TC, that the church and that brotherhood must offer, in the 21st century?
Just what you talked about, that opportunity. Uh, I can speak to what's going on at our church right now. We're ramping up our men's ministry, right? So we're having these opportunities to come together and just a fellowship. So through that fellowship, you build relationships, and then that relationships, it gives you, you build that trust. You see people that you gravitate to, you start talking to them, and it has been absolutely life changing because there's a lot of assumptions, right? I look at you and I see you in your suit driving such and such car, live in a certain neighborhood, and I think you got it going on. But the truth of the matter is, you have the same fears and the same frailties that I do. And so
Mhm.
I think we have to continue as men. We have to come together. We have to fellowship together. We have to get to know each other, and then talk to each other, and be vulnerable with each other, because it's just going to help us progress. We're going to learn, like I said this a little earlier, we're going to learn from others' shortcomings and their successes so that it'll help me be able to do some things differently so I can, be a better person.
That's good. Brother Hilton, what say ye?
So, continuing to talk about that safe space. Um, so, I think for me, it's difficult, um, because if I'm looking for a safe space and I haven't had that safe space before, and I think I talked about this before, that safe space is going to look like a giant to me.
Mm.
And I'm going to be just like, was it the Israelites or the Egyptians who were scared to go into the land that was already theirs because of the giants in the land? Sometimes that safe space is that giant for brothers like me who are not accustomed to getting that safe space. So, in order to get the safety, you have to understand that the road to safety is not going to be a smooth road to travel. You understand what I'm saying? Like sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
the road less travel, because of the bumps in the road you're going to get and the trials and tribulations that you're going to go through to get to that safe space. So vulnerability, when we talk about vulnerability, uh, that's also the ability to take specific risks, necessary risks to be able to get to that safe space. So that's what vulnerability is. It's courage. It's not weakness. It's courage. The courage to be able to tell your true, authentic story with your whole heart, regardless of the judgment and the vitriol and the slander that comes along with it. I think the church should teach something on vulnerability. Uh, get more into the story of Paul, and Paul, when he says he would rather take delight in his reproaches, his infirmities, his necessities, his trials and tribulations. For when he is weak, and I'm assuming he's talking about when he's vulnerable, then Christ is strong. His strength is made perfect in our weakness. So, we have we have programs set in place, and we're promoting safe space. But I think we need to go to another level in that and start explaining what it's going to take to get to that safe place, because I think in some cases we are promoting it as if it's already safe. Well, we can tell the person that it's already safe, but then how can we convince them that the space is
Wow.
safe in terms of them coming in? Because all we doing is telling them. We telling them, oh, it's a safe space. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about in it. Well, these brothers like that have been in so-called safe spaces before,
Mm,
and when they started sharing stuff, the stuff that they were sharing was too
got back to
much
him.
for the person to bear, and they didn't know how to handle it. So when you really talking about a no judgment zone, sometimes you have to check yourself and say, well, am I emotionally stable enough to be able to handle this safe space that I have seemingly have created for brothers to come in and do that thing. So it's difficult to talk about. I think people talk about it so much that I don't think they know what they're actually offering at that time. When you offer a safe space to somebody, can you explain? Can you go into other deeper detail in terms of that safe space? Because to a person that don't know what a safe space is, that's a strange thing in a foreign land. This is uncharted territory. This is the road less traveled. So you can't just say it's a safe space. Now you have to build rapport and build relationship with these people who haven't been in that safe space before. And that's why I'm using transparency and things like self-disclosure to try to make these brothers feel more comfortable in coming in and saying, well, dang, and if this dude got the courage and the vulnerability to come out and say some stuff like that, maybe I can get into that too. But until we embody the safe space and become the safe space within us, and be that person that has the courage to lead in that aspect of it in terms of transparency and vulnerability, and showing and being and exemplify what vulnerability really is, then it's still going to be difficult for these brothers to come into that circle because they don't know who he is. They already got trust issues coming into it anyway, because they've dealt with so many insults and so much judgment and so much vitriol in terms of being vulnerable in that. And I'm talking about in there. We talking about money today, but you know, and being vulnerable is not easy. It's tough. Like I'm really over here, really, like my heart is pounding as I'm talking about it right now because it it's a fearful thing to talk about, but unless you possess some courage to overcome that fear, we're never going to get where we need to be. So I think the church should delve deeper into what that safe space really looks like, embody what a safe space really is, so that some people, so that we could be an example for other brothers to come in. So that's my
Yeah.
spiel.
Oh, I love it. Can I add just a little bit of layer there? Just a one
Sure,
little layer?
absolutely.
Because I think it's really important that when you're in those areas, that the people receiving that information, they have to keep that to themselves, have to keep it in the circle, right?
Yes,
I think we've all seen the situation where you leave a situation like that, or somebody confides in you, and it becomes a topic of pillow talk, and then that spills over to you know this one, this, I told my wife, now my wife told her girlfriend, and it gets all, it can't be that. It has to
Oh
be,
Lord.
and it, he fell out again. I
Oh Lord.
knocked
it,
him
it,
out.
it happens
But
though.
it
Stuff like that
happens.
happens.
And that's why I wanted to layer on.
Yeah,
So, gentlemen that are
it
listening, when
happens. Yeah,
when a brother comes to you in that safe space, it's got to stay there. It's
it
it's
gotta
got to stay
stay
there.
there.
It can't be pillow talk. It can't be, especially when you're using people's names, right?
Absolutely.
Because the world is small, and so I think it's really, really important that as men, when we are in that safe space, kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What
Mhm.
happens in that safe space stays in that safe space.
I love it.
At least it should.
Because, no matter, I never forget Bishop G.E. Patterson, late Bishop G.E. Patterson said, uh, when he went public with his prostate cancer diagnosis, he said, "Well, I told the general board, but no matter if you tell a room full of 14 men something, there's going to be a leak somewhere." Uh, and those safe spaces, especially the pillow talk spaces, because especially with men in here, but especially after things transpire, that's when we're the most vulnerable. And when we start spewing the truth, because now we feel like we can trust you, and that's something that stays behind closed doors. There are a lot of things to this day that I'm just now finding out about my parents, and I'm like, I never knew that. They said it wasn't for you to know.
Right.
Hmm.
Yes.
You know, that's why I get accused of this, of being a recluse, because
Hmm.
I can be very closed off, and I can be very outgoing, but at the same time, we have to be discerning enough to know who to share this information with. Number one. Number two, how much information to share, because sometimes we can talk too much. The next thing you know, there's a Facebook post somewhere, and it's about you. You ain't got
Right.
hey, for real. You ain't even got to guess. You
Right.
know, because the one thing that I hear now is, well, Pastor, I hear the men now are just as scandalous as the women. I'm like, don't put me in the middle of that, please. I'm just here to do my black job. But I guess this is where. Okay, I guess we're here to the close of reflection now, since we're just, I'll just give you a scripture here, and then we'll just kind of just wrap it up here. 2 Corinthians 9:8, and God is able to bless you abundantly. My bad, I'm still stuck on it. So that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. I really believe that God guarantees us success as long as we do the thing is according to what He would have us do it. Um, there's a movie. Here I go being a movie buff. Uh, Obviously, The Mighty Ducks 3, where this coach says, he said, "If you don't learn anything from me, learn this." He said, "You cannot be afraid to lose." He said, "You cannot be too careful, but you can't be too careless." He said, "Because you don't know what other, you know, avenues life is going to throw at you." He said, "If you can have that same attitude that you have on the ice that you have in life, that's how you play good defense."
Yeah.
Me being an athlete, I put that to the test, because even if I lost the game, I'm going to figure out why I lost. And I believe that, especially with failed relationships, we don't go to the graveyard and dig up the body and do a proper autopsy.
Mm.
Even with our financial failures, we don't do a proper autopsy. We just, okay, I messed that up. Well, how did you mess it up? What was the fatal decision that you made? What was the steps that you took in order to get where that caused that failure? How do I improve? It's like the great Jimmy Johnson said after they won that first Super Bowl in '93. He said, "Now he's like, now you got to give this some thought. You can't just let it go on one ear and out the other. Am I going to be a better individual than I was last year? Because familiarity
Mm.
breeds content."
Intent. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing about Jimmy Johnson, you can make the team Monday, take the team picture Tuesday, practice Wednesday, Thursday, go through the walkthrough Friday, play Sunday, and be cut the next Monday.
Yeah.
You know, it puts pressure. I like something that Hilton said, to where I'm the same way. Being a musician, a pastor, all that, a father, all the things that I am, I put the pressure on myself in some cases, and I got accused that, where's the grace that you give for yourself?
Hmm.
I'm on the phone like, what? You know, and
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we think about that, bro. To
and
be
we
honest with you,
don't,
I don't think we
because
think
we're
about it.
so tunnel vision on
Yeah.
getting it done
Yeah.
That way, there's nothing that nobody can have over our head. I'm just being transparent.
Mhm.
And that way, there's no susceptibility for an argument or a misunderstanding down the road. Now, what does this do for us? Our body starts to betray us.
Oh,
I know for me, I'll lose my appetite. I don't want to eat, let alone drink anything. And then next thing you know, I'm already 170 pounds, which I'm where I am now. But if I go there and allow the enemy to come in and do that to me, I can drop 10 pounds in 2 days.
well, brother, I wish I had that because my depression makes me want to
I'm,
eat.
I'm the stress eater. Yep,
I'm an emotional eater, and when I'm depressed, I go to food to relieve myself. You understand what I'm saying? Probably ain't
I
the best
get
thing
it.
to do, and it ain't the right kind of food. You understand? Fried chicken,
You
huh?
sound like you sound like Jimmy Johnson when he had that last press conference when he said, "I'm no longer
Oh,
the head football coach." He said he was watching. He said, "Now, if you look at that," he said, "I don't like watching that because when you're stressed out, you eat a lot." He said, "I was on the border every day."
I know I can stand to lose some pounds.
Uh,
Yeah.
it is amazing because we have to start listening to our bodies.
Yes, we do.
And not only that, I wanna give deference to the women in our lives because I always tell people when it comes to those situations because they're so in tune with their emotions, most of the time they're right. And I say that because like, well, you need to eat something. I don't want to eat. No, you need to eat something. I don't want to eat. Next thing you know, you're sick. I should have ate something. So I just kind of tuck my tail and. But
You ain't got to tell me twice to eat something.
Look, I'm trying to tell you, I will clear out a buffet so quick. But um, I want to ask this question to TC. What advice would you give to a young brother entering, marriage and or fatherhood or both? What advice would you give?
from a financial perspective,
Yes.
honestly, I would try to find a financial advisor, someone to talk with, right, to kind of set some short term, medium, and long term goals, right? Because again, if you're prepared, right? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. From that vein, if I'm walking into this and I know that I've got, I want to be able to send my kid to college. I want to be able to save money so when my daughter gets married, I can do that. Whatever that is, if you get in front of all of that, talk to someone that can help you put some things in place so that you're working on that over the course of time and you're not waiting to the last minute. I mean, and how many of us have seen, it's my child's senior year and now I'm thinking about I got to figure out how to send him to college, right? Or, my daughter's finally going to get, not finally, my daughter's getting married and she wants this $10,000 wedding. And I haven't been preparing for that the whole 20 years of her life, 25 years, whatever the number is. So yeah, I would just try to get with somebody on the front end that's going to just help you. And again, I tell people, start small, start now, right? You just $25 a month into whatever vehicle you want to put it in, right? I'm a fan of mutual funds because they seem to always come back, but $25 in that over the course of 20 years, you look up, you've got a nice sum of money, or even if it's just a regular savings, invest here a 401k, just whatever it is. Get with somebody that can sit down with you, help you, understand what your goals are, and then they can put you on the path to accomplishing those goals.
That's good. That's
That's good
good. It's
stuff. Yeah.
especially that because graduate. I got a senior now, so Lord help me. Um, yeah, I mean, no, I'm serious. I just had to. Me and his mother just paid for his class ring, and I'm like, man, class rings and got expensive.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Between that and it's a running joke that I have. I said, if you ever want to get scared straight. It sound like I'm from East Texas now. Scared straight. Uh, go go to Walmart and go down the baby aisle.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm, you'll come out no, and this is Hilton's question. Why does biblical masculinity matter more than ever in today's culture?
Why does biblical
She said,
masculinity matter?
she said leave East Texas alone.
Why? Because you say it's great? Or
Oh, that's funny. You know,
Oh,
I
Lord.
think it goes back to what you were saying earlier that, it keeps us grounded in the word, keeps us grounded in what we know to be true versus, what Instagram and TikTok is telling us, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with those platforms. Please don't censor me or anything like that. But I think there's a place for it. But I think that when you stick to your biblical principles, it just makes your life easier. I think you said it actually, Pastor, when you were talking about it takes time to get to certain places. Well,
Mhm.
on social media, you can be an influencer, you can be successful overnight. Nobody saw the struggle. You don't post that part. You don't post how this is your third site. You didn't post how you went through a lot of trials and tribulations to get to what people are seeing today. So I think if we just really help people stick to the word of God and just what that looks like and how that should look on a daily basis, I just think it makes for a much better life.
That's good. Uh, I'll piggyback on that because is kind of just to sum it. It's kind of like when you cook something in the oven. It's time and temperature. Don't
Mm.
overcook it. Don't undercook it. Cook it just right. Which is kind of like with a cake, 'cause I love to bake. Take a toothpick, stick it in that cake when it comes out, just to make sure we good to go. Let it sit for about 35, 40 minutes. Let it cool off. Then I can ice. It's always process. But people forget that the main ingredient in a cake is the yolk in the egg because it binds
Fine.
all things.
Mm.
And that's if I could give any advice to the young brothers and young sisters is have the yolk from a financial perspective, spiritual perspective, physical, social, sensual perspective that holds everything together. You
Mm.
know, the scripture that says that a
It's
threefold
not.
cord
It's not
is
easily
not
broken.
easily broken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah.
So I love it. This has been wonderful, gentlemen. I pray that we've said something that has edified the body. A lot of it was you're gonna need a chaser to go with it, but sometimes you need it, kind of like that castor oil you got when you was a kid and got
Ooh.
everything out of you. But I do want to thank TC Alexander from the Bank of Texas. So tell the people where you can be found, just in case they want to, come in and seek you out for some banking needs.
Right. Well, so the best way to reach me is going to probably be by email or phone because I move around quite a bit.
Okay.
But simply TC Alexander at bankoftexas.com. Just keep it real simple. My
Real
name,
simple.
real simple. Phone number 214-575-1971. And actually, you can go to any of our branches and just ask about. I mean, I hope this comes out the right way. If you just go to any of our branches and tell them that you're looking for me, they'll help you find me. We're a small bank. We're part of a much larger bank, but here in the DFW area, we're probably 22, 23 branches between Dallas and Fort Worth. And I've been fortunate enough over my career to have worked with all of them, so they'll all know how to get in touch with me.
Terrific. And of
Awesome.
course, we definitely appreciate you coming through. And
Yes,
thank
sir.
God we got the hiccups
Yeah,
out of there. Hey, I understand. That hotel internet is wild, man.
it's so bad. I had to go get my hotspot, my work hotspot, and get on it. But we're here.
Well,
We're
there's a
here.
will, there's a way. And of course,
Yeah.
Hilton,
Absolutely.
is always a pleasure conversing on,
Yes,
on
sir.
on these Sundays,
Absolutely.
man. Always
Absolutely.
picking your head for that insight and that transparency. I love it.
Absolutely.
And of course, I'm your boy, your nephew, the man behind the sacks, Pastor Alex Allen. And that is our podcast for the night. So definitely like, share, please share, because we definitely want to get some momentum going into the Men Hurt 2 conference that's coming up. And shout out to our contemporary who was not here. He came and chimed in for a little bit, but he was at a graduation, so he had to fulfill those wifely and family obligations. So definitely shout out to him. But until next fourth Sunday, same time, same channel, we wish you all a pleasant evening.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Coming soon, Saturday, July 19th, Men Hurt 2 Conference, with keynote speaker Dr. Marvin Cotton Jr. from Michigan with the message Better Not Broken. From Bank of Texas TC Alexander, author and conference MC Joseph B. Roberts and Hilton Young aka GF Soldier. Saturday, July 19th, Men Hurt Too. Register now. Eventbrite.
My brothers, my brothers, my brothers, it is your boy Joseph Roberts here, and I am inviting you to join me at the Men Hurt Too conference being held here in Dallas on July 19th, 2025. We got an awesome lineup of speakers. There's going to be food, there's going to be music, there's going to be door prizes, just a host of activities that are going on exclusively designed and set up just for the men. We don't oftentimes have these safe spaces for us to chop it up and fellowship with one another. But on that day, July 19th here in Dallas, we are going to be doing just that. And to any ladies that are tuning in right now to this video, if you got some special men in your life, whether it's your husband, your son, your brother, your nephew, your grandson, I don't care who he is. If you know that he needs to be a part of something like this, get him registered too. Simply go to Eventbrite today to get yourself registered and get your ticket. Give somebody a ticket. We look forward to seeing you.
Gentlemen, my name is TC Alexander. I'm with Bank of Texas, and I am super excited to come and share with you at the Men Hurt Too conference happening July 19, 2025 in Dallas, Texas. If you haven't registered yet, please go and register on Eventbrite. I look forward to seeing you there so that we can heal some of the bad financial decisions made in the past. See you there.
Well, hi, my name is Christian Bolin. I'm delighted to be with you and to meet you tonight and be part of the Men Hurt Too conference. I'm grateful to Stephanie for including me, and I'll be handing out or distributing 30 copies of my book. I'm a Christian author, and I write about the life of Jesus Christ and how it can help us to get his light into our life to help us rise above the really challenging troubles that we often have in this life. I can relate to the title of Men Hurt Too because I've been around mental health issues, and that's a big topic that I write about. Mental health and addiction. I'm a recovering addict. I grew up with a father who was mildly depressed, a mother who had severe anxiety, and a brother who was completely disabled due to severe schizophrenia. And as challenging as all that was, I found out later in life that I had a condition of bipolar disorder, and I was married to my sweet wife that I'm still married to nearly 39 years, who has borderline personality disorder. And if you're familiar with that condition, you'll know that it's extremely disruptive and very challenging. I know that I wouldn't have survived even the first year of marriage if it weren't for the power of God in my life. So about 30 years ago, I felt inspired to begin writing about the life and teachings of Jesus Christ in a very simple way, because I experienced that when his life and his light enters mine, it truly does make us born again. We rise above and we gain his light and power into our life to face really complex, gut-wrenching challenges. And it has been my passion that God has put upon my heart to write about that in a way to help folks who are struggling with these kinds of deep challenges. So I'll be giving out 30, through Stephanie, 30 books, 2 different titles. Jesus Christ, His Life and Mine is a nonfiction book that makes the life and teachings of Jesus easy to understand for readers in the modern world. It's called How the Story of Jesus Applies to Us in the Twitter Era. The other title is Healing the Stormy Marriage, Hope and Help for You if you're married to somebody with mental health issues and addiction challenges. And it provides some insights into our own relationship, true stories, but also a lot of research from marriage experts and mental health professionals, and steeped in the Bible and spiritual knowledge. So it is my hope that you'll feel Jesus's life enter your life in a way that perhaps hasn't before, and that can lift you with new ideas and insights into dealing with your challenges. If you can relate to these kind of mental health and addiction.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Hilton Christopher Young Sr., also known as the Poet GF Soldier. And I just want to encourage you to come out to the Men Hurt Too conference in July. If you have not registered yet, please register right now at Eventbrite. I will be coming forth, bringing you spoken word verses. I will be spitting it like I feel it. and just to open up the circle and get men to understand that this is going to be a safe space for us to vent out our frustrations, be able to express our feelings in a manner in which we're not allowed to do in other aspects of our lives and what we do. So I'll be speaking a little bit and I'll be spitting some poetry as well. You got to come out. I'm excited about this event. It's going to be a powerful, packed lineup. And men from all over coming to speak and pour into other men's lives. And we just going to have a good time in the Lord. We'll have a good time in God. It's going to be powerful. And I'm excited about it. Hope to see y'all there. Once again, my name is Hilton Christopher Young, Sr., also known as GF Soldier. And I will be in the house along with other men. And we will be coming together to express the true heart and the true feelings and the true soul of a man. Hope to see y'all there. Peace.
My name is Dr. Marvin Cotton Jr., and I am this year's keynote speaker at Men Hurt 2 Conference in Dallas on July 19th. I am looking forward to it. I have a word that God has given me for those that are in pain and are secretly hurting, and those that just need a word and inspiration in order to get through whatever it is that they're going through. I'm so looking forward to this. This is a huge opportunity. I've traveled the world speaking. I'm a nationally known author, a best-selling author. I do a lot of work in the community. I do a lot of work building people up. But this particular assignment is absolutely different. It's absolutely different because I know that I am riding on a calling to do this particular thing in Dallas. I'm calling all men and women that need to know how to support a man that is hurting to sign up for this conference. Go to Eventbrite, sign up. I am the keynote speaker, and I'm looking forward to giving you the word that God has given me to help you.